welcome everybody. Up a little bit. So maybe you would just like to introduce yourself quickly and say a few things about who are you?
Okay, so I'm one of RAIZE co-founders. As you already said, RAIZE is the biggest marketplace lender in Portugal and one of the biggest in Iberia. So we focus on small and medium-sized loans to SMEs. We are also giving our first steps in lending to private individuals, and we are also starting some nice stuff in the insurtech business. So quite dynamic times at RAIZE. I'm also professor in Nova SBE, finance professor, and that's basically it as an introduction.
Nice, very nice. Um, so RAIZE is your first company, right?
Yes, RAIZE is the first company that I have founded. I'm not that old, okay, so it would have been difficult to be a second company, but yes, I've been doing this for the last 7 years or so.
Wow, that's
So
quite a long time actually.
yes,
And
it's
I
quite a long
didn't I
time.
didn't hint at you being old. That's not what I was trying to do. Oh God, no. But I find it interesting because so was creating a company something that you had been planning to do, something that you wished to do, or was it just spur of the moment? There was an idea and you jumped on the opportunity. How did that start?
So the idea of this company came like I would say around 2013, 2012, 2013. Portugal was in a very dark space at the time. Uh, so basically, what uh, we were going through basically a debt crisis in Portugal at the time, and so funding companies was very difficult, and so we decided to start this alternative channel, um, and at the time. I would say that we had no idea what we were getting into, but it has been very exciting ever since.
And did you have the idea or did your co-founders have the initial idea?
It was a brainstorming process, I would say.
Okay, very interesting. And so I understand it was more a spur of the moment. There was an opportunity and
Yes,
you
it was.
took
There
it.
was an opportunity, and we actually took it. Actually, there were other platforms doing the same thing in Europe, and we just decided to give it a go here in Portugal and see if it actually made sense. Okay, so there were a lot of unknown variables here. So. Would retail investors want to invest in through a platform like this? Would the companies be interested in having an alternative partner? So there were a lot of open questions before we started, for which we had no hint if it was going to work or not. So actually, we made it work, and that's one of our major accomplishments here.
Were you scared in the beginning that this was not going to work out, or were you actually more laid back and you just thought, oh, let's just see what happens?
I would say that the second alternative. That's the thing when you start a company when you are in your 20s. You actually are very optimistic always about the prospects of what you are doing, especially if you firmly believe in it, like we do. So it was actually a very optimistic thought process. Okay,
Mm.
obviously, being an entrepreneur has its challenges. So it's not only sunshine and laughters.
Yeah, of course, of course. Especially fintech. Fintech still has this reputation for being super sexy as the startups, like the startups that you build there. It's also cool and fancy. But then when you actually look at it, what's happening with a lot of these companies and how difficult it actually is, it looks very different to the reputation it initially has, at least.
Yes, so I would say that all startups in general are much more difficult than what people believe in. Okay, or at least of what you see in the news. Okay, so
Hmm.
what you see in the news, it's like a very small part of the ecosystems, and you only see the bright side being communicated. So you actually don't see the you don't see all of the picture, and the problem with startups in general, there are several problems. But I would say the major challenge is to scale businesses. Okay, so you start something, you start creating a company, creating a structure. But then businesses need to scale. Okay, and to scale, you need a lot of things. It's not only capital. You need to have a working, a functional business model. So there are a lot of things that you need to check, a lot of boxes to check, so that a startup becomes a regular company. And most of the times, it requires a huge amount of time. Okay, so it's not something that you can just throw money at. You actually need time for things to grow, for things to work, and that's a major issue. And just look at the last 2 years. Okay, so who would have thought that the world was going to enter into a standstill? So maybe you had in your business plan that you were going to grow at 20, 30, 40% per year, but then the world is in a standstill, and
Yeah.
you need to adapt and you need to change. So uh, it's a difficult life, I would say, very difficult life.